I pressed my body flat against the cold wooden floor, holding my breath so tight it burned. Just one small sound, just one, would ruin my little surprise. My wedding dress spread around me like a soft white cloud, but under the old oak bed in this riverside Charleston house, it felt more like a tangled sheet, snagging on every beam, every knot in the wood, every rusty nail that creaked if I so much as twitched. If Adrian saw me crawling out from under the bed like a stray cat, he'd probably laugh until he couldn't breathe. Maybe even scream a little. I'd pictured it all day, him calling my name around the room, panicking a bit, then I'd pop out, "Surprise!" We'd laugh like we did back when things were simple, and back then, Adrian Carter was different. He was the wildest man in Mount Pleasant, tall, bright-eyed, smiling like trouble came easy to him. The kind who'd show up under my apartment window at midnight, strumming country songs until neighbors threatened to call the cops. I used to run down and drag him away, still wearing my fluffy bunny slippers, both of us laughing as we dashed into the humid Charleston night. We were in our 30s but acted like 20-year-olds. Tonight was supposed to be a tiny throwback to that, just a harmless little honeymoon prank. But then, the bedroom door opened. And the footsteps weren't Adrian's. They were sharp, clipped, slicing against the wooden floor. Vivian Carter, my mother-in-law. That sound alone made my spine lock. She walked in like the room belonged to her, like everything in it did. She set her handbag on the velvet chair, her usual spot, and sat on the edge of the bed. Right above me. I froze. Then she answered a call, her voice soft but edged with the kind of cold that only comes from a lifetime of giving orders. "Yes, Margot, I'm home." The wedding was pretty enough for what we needed. Her voice cut like a blade. "That girl Lena? Sweet to the point of being naive. Adrian says she's basically an orphan. Father's some low-level technician living in a rundown apartment in North Charleston. Perfect. Easy to control." My blood turned to ice. My father, Samuel Morgan, is the lead designer for a major maritime engineering company. He lives simply, but he's not low-level. And that rundown apartment she mentioned? It belonged to my aunt. Dad kept it as a memory. Our real home, a riverside condo overlooking the Cooper, was something I never bragged about, especially not to my future mother-in-law. Vivian flicked a lighter. Adrian had told me she quit smoking 10 years ago. "The plan is simple, Margot. They live together 6 months, maybe a year. Then Adrian will say it's not working. I'll play the injured mother whose daughter-in-law is rude, lazy, doesn't cook, doesn't clean. Then they separate quietly." She paused, a pause heavy enough to make anyone shiver. "And the house that's now in Lena's name? We take it back like flipping a switch. My son paid for it. We have receipts. We have proof. What can a little nobody like her do? Adrian and I planned everything." A cold wave washed over me, inside out. I remembered Adrian placing his hand on my shoulder, telling me he wanted the house in my name. "Just so you feel safe. Money doesn't matter to me." I believed him. I remembered Vivian's gentle questions, the way she'd look at me when talking about my family. "Your parents, both gone?" Poor girl. Now I knew that look wasn't pity. It was assessment, sizing up prey. Vivian stood and moved to the mirror. "Slow and steady, Margot. I endured her father for 30 years. When he died, everything fell into my hands. The girl is just as clueless, easy to fool." She gave a small laugh, then walked out. I stayed still, didn't get up, didn't cry, didn't even tremble. I just stared at the thin stripes of light slipping through the floorboards, forcing myself to stay calm until every sound disappeared. Then I crawled out. My dress was dirty, hair tangled, makeup smeared with sweat. But none of it mattered. There was only one thing left: the truth. Adrian didn't marry me for love. He married me for a plan. Something inside me, something colder than the pain, woke up. I didn't run. I didn't break. I stood up, pressed my hand to my chest and whispered, "You picked the wrong girl." In the tiny purse I brought tonight, there was my phone. When Vivian walked in, I turned on the recorder, planning to capture Adrian laughing when I jumped out to scare him. Instead, I'd captured my first piece of evidence. But one piece wasn't enough. I needed the whole deck. I changed out of my wedding dress, folded it carefully and put it away. Then I opened my laptop, opened my phone, and began. I called my dad. "Dad, I need you at the notary office tomorrow morning." He was silent for a few seconds. "Lena, something happened, didn't it? I'm coming." Then I called Ezra, my best friend and a lawyer. "Ezra, if a house is bought before marriage, in one person's name, can the spouse touch it?" Her voice sharpened instantly. "Not unless he can prove he paid for it. Why? Lena, what's going on?" "We'll talk tomorrow." I shut the laptop. The door opened. Adrian walked in, pretending to be worried. "Where were you, sweetheart? I searched half the city." I smiled. "Just changing. Got a little tired." He hugged me, kissed my forehead. I forced myself not to pull away. "It's cool outside tonight. You ready for bed?" "Yeah." "Tomorrow we start our 2-week honeymoon, my love." "Sure." I watched him walk ahead, confident, oblivious. Clueless that I'd heard everything. Clueless that those 2 weeks, I would be preparing for war. A war I had every intention of winning. A war he would never see coming. If you've ever stepped into a marriage, or any relationship, with pure trust, only to find a truth that shattered it, feel free to share your story below. Stories like this exist to remind us, no one gets to underestimate your heart. And if this story touched you, a like or a subscribe helps me bring more real, raw voices to this channel. Adrian fell asleep fast. So fast it stunned me. A man who just got married, who just walked out of a long celebration, should have been restless, whispering something soft like, "Tonight is the beginning of us." But no, he was out the moment his head hit the pillow. And I lay there with my eyes wide open, staring at the carved oak ceiling. The ceiling fan rotated slowly, its shadow sweeping back and forth like it was searching for the truth. I turned my head toward him. In the dim light, Adrian's face looked peaceful, almost gentle. There was a time when I actually loved that face. That softness made me feel safe. Now all I felt was cold. The longer I looked, the clearer it became. We weren't beginning a life together. I had married a man already prepared to stab me in the back. I closed my eyes, forced myself to breathe evenly. I needed to stay sharp. Someone like Vivian wasn't just manipulative, she was experienced, strategic, and dangerous. And her son? Clearly on the same team. But I wasn't the Lena from 3 years ago anymore. Not the girl who believed love could fix anything if she tried hard enough. Not the woman who thought honesty was enough to be loved. I was the woman who had lain under a bed and listened to their entire plan. I knew exactly who I was now, the person who would make them regret everything. The next morning, Adrian kissed my shoulder like nothing had happened. "Good morning, sweetheart. What do you want for breakfast?" I smiled. "Why don't you shower first? I'll head to the kitchen." "Great. Make me an omelet and coffee?" I nodded, slipping out of bed, a shiver crawling down my spine. But I hid it so well, even I surprised myself. When he went into the bathroom, I tucked my phone between the spice jars and turned on the recorder. Not because I expected evidence from a half-asleep husband, but because strategy had already become second nature. The kitchen was wide, with windows overlooking a mossy garden. Charleston mornings always had that golden, humid glow that made everything look softer than it felt. I stood in that beautiful kitchen and did not make an omelet. I grabbed a pack of frozen pancakes, microwaved them, and drowned them in honey to disguise the taste. If I had to play the sweet wife, I'd play it in a way that made them walk straight into my trap. Adrian came downstairs, hair wet. "Oh, pancakes? You're up early." "I wanted you to eat something light. Didn't want your stomach to hurt." He took a bite, frowned. "Kinda chewy." "It's a low-fat recipe I'm trying." He let out a small sigh, like he was tolerating an inconvenience. Then he said something so ridiculous, I almost laughed out loud. "By the way, Lena, I think you should add my name to the house paperwork. You know, for maintenance, repairs, HOA stuff." I sipped my coffee, letting silence stretch just long enough. You think I'm not capable of handling the house? No, he chuckled, half charming, half conceited. It's just, I'm the man, head of the household. Things like that are easier for me. I looked up at him with the softest eyes I could create. Maybe later. I'm meeting Riley today. Riley Thompson? His tone tightened. Your lawyer friend? I nodded. We haven't seen each other in ages. He hesitated. All right, just don't stay out too late. Mom's coming for dinner. Can you make something nice? She's particular about food. Oh, I knew better than he did. I smiled sweetly, though inside my thoughts were sharp. Tonight, she'll remember this dinner forever. At 10 a.m., Riley arrived. Fiery red hair, leather bag full of case files. She didn't even sit before blurting. Lena, what happened? You sounded off last night. I opened the recording. I said nothing. I let the truth speak on its own. A few minutes in, Riley stared at me with wide eyes. Lena, this is a coordinated scam. You could sue both of them. I don't want to sue, I said quietly. I want them to remember. Riley let out a half laugh, half gasp. Okay, if we're playing that game, then let's play. How much evidence do you have? For now, this. I gestured at my notes and financial documents. What else do you need? Asset protection, full separation, transfer of the company shares my dad wants to give me, and I need a few recordings of Adrian's own voice. Riley folded her arms. So you'll have to act like the perfect wife for a while. I can do that. A knock sounded at the door again. My father, Samuel Morgan, tall, refined, gentle-eyed as always. But when he saw my face, he seemed to understand everything without me saying a word. Lena, tell me. I hit play again. He listened silently. When Vivian's line, that little country girl is just prey, played, Dad's hand clenched. He whispered, voice tight. What do you want me to do? Just sign the papers today, Dad. I'll handle the rest. He placed a steady hand on my shoulder. You're strong, just like your mother was. Whatever you need, you're not alone. That evening, Vivian arrived right on time. White tailored suit, perfect silver hair, expensive perfume. She entered the house like it was hers, not mine. Lena, darling, she cooed, head tilted, smile polite but eyes inspecting everything. I hope you've prepared something lovely. I'm absolutely starving. I smiled. I've prepared everything. And I had. Chicken soup overloaded with black pepper, buttery, mushy rice, a salad made from slightly expired canned meat, and a pudding that was somehow both undercooked and painfully sweet. I served each dish carefully. Vivian tasted the soup first, then immediately coughed. Heavens, Lena, this... It's my grandma's recipe, I said softly. Country folks, you know. Her eyes watered from the pepper, but she tried to keep her grace. The rice made her frown. The salad made her push the plate away. When the pudding arrived, she shot to her feet, exactly as planned. Adrian, I'm tired. Take me home. Adrian gave me a disappointed look, but rushed after her. I stood in the kitchen, watching through the old window as she gestured angrily at Adrian beside the car. I knew what she thought, that I was simply clumsy, that I was inexperienced. She had no idea every detail was deliberate, every misstep part of a design. Day one for them, and day one for me, in a battle I never imagined fighting. But if they wanted to see me as prey, I'd show them prey comes with teeth. After that disastrous dinner, Adrian stayed quiet the entire walk back inside. I sat at the dining table, pretending to tidy up, waiting for him to explode. I knew Vivian would tell him everything she disliked, the way only a mother who believes she can judge the whole world does. Adrian shut the door so hard the frame shook. Lena, what was that dinner? I widened my eyes, just a breathy touch of surprise. What do you mean? Why would you embarrass my mom like that on her first visit? What kind of cooking was that? I placed a hand on my chest like someone whose pride had just been bruised. I tried my best. You think I did it on purpose? A single tear slid out at the perfect moment. My college drama elective was finally paying off. Adrian softened immediately. Okay, I'm sorry. Mom's just picky, you know that. I nodded gently, kept my head lowered, just enough to make it seem like I was holding back hurt. Tomorrow, I'll take you out. Nice restaurant, my treat. I gave him a small smile, just enough teeth not to show. All right. That night, I lay with my back to him, eyes open, mind racing. I didn't sleep. I counted each step of my new plan. To beat someone like Vivian, I had to be soft, sweet, harmless, at least to her. For the next 2 weeks, Adrian followed his mother's script word for word. He began policing every expense. When I bought a jar of scented candles, he asked, "Do you really need that?" When I returned from the grocery store, he checked the receipt. Why buy this brand? The cheaper one tastes the same. He even slipped in little, accidental requests. Hey, show me your spending account. Easier if I help manage it. I always agreed, always with a gentle smile, the kind a woman in love might wear. Sure, let me open it. But every single time, my phone was already recording. Adrian didn't know each word, each tone, each sigh of frustration he used was turning into a knife pointed straight at him. And Vivienne? She came by 3 times in those 2 weeks. Every visit, she spoke like royalty inspecting a servant. Lena, dear, no respectable woman uses knives like that. These curtains? Outdated. Don't you have taste? The house is a bit messy. You should try harder. I would bow my head. Yes, mother. Then I'd stand there, silent, absorbing, recording, watching. People like Vivian never realize the most dangerous weapon in any war is the quiet opponent. One evening, Adrian sat watching TV with Malik, a man I never liked. Something about him always felt unclean. They drank beer, laughed too loudly, talked about work, about money. I stayed in the bedroom with the door slightly cracked and the recorder running. That flimsy door and a little alcohol made men honest. Malik, my mom's brilliant. Adrian bragged. She's got a plan to get Lena's house within a year. That place is a gold mine, and I paid for it anyway, just waiting for the right moment. I heard the clink of beer cans. What about your wife? Her? Adrian snorted. She's soft. Country girl soft. Doesn't know how to fight back. Her dad's broke. Even if she tried to sue, she couldn't afford a lawyer. I smiled. This time, the smile wasn't an act. It was the smile of someone who suddenly had enough evidence. The next morning, I walked into Riley's office. She listened to the recording, eyebrows pulling together. Well, that's enough for a civil fraud case. I want more, I said. Riley leaned back, almost amused. More? How? I want them to lose control. I want them to panic. I want them to feel what it's like to step into a trap. A slow grin spread across Riley's face. Then we're almost ready for the grand performance. I nodded, but before that, I need my dad. That evening, Dad came to my house, and he didn't come alone. Beside him stood a man in a gray suit, a notary. Samuel Morgan was usually humble, gentle, but tonight he stood tall, expression sharp, a man who had weathered storms and learned how to face them. Lena, sign these. He placed a stack of documents on the table. Share certificates, property transfers, a trust agreement giving Dad 51% control in case of emergencies. I signed each page, my hand steady. The notary completed his part and left. Dad stayed. He rested a hand on my shoulder. You're doing the right thing, he said softly, though his eyes were deep and fierce. Adrian never deserved you, and Vivian, she has no idea who she's up against. I looked at him. For the first time since the wedding night, I felt grounded. I don't want revenge, Dad. What do you want? I want them to stop. I want them to know they picked the wrong person. Dad nodded. You have your mother's strength. When she made up her mind, no one could stand in her way. I smiled. She was the strongest person I knew. Now it's you. He squeezed my hand. You'll win this. Adrian came home late that night. He stepped inside looking annoyed. Mom said you were rude? He asked, studying me like he was looking for cracks. I turned around from the kitchen, meeting his eyes with the gentlest expression I could muster. If she felt that way, I'm sorry. Adrian relaxed instantly, pulling me into a hug. I just wanted to be happy. Can you make something she likes tomorrow? I nodded. I will. And inside me, the thought was sharp. The last dish she ever wants to see. The next day, I went to the grocery store. Bought ingredients, not for Vivian's favorites, but for dishes she'd remember for all the wrong reasons. But that night, I didn't serve dinner. I served a lesson. Vivian sat at the table with that calm, superior look she always wore. So, Lena, what do you have for us tonight? I smiled. Something I thought you'd enjoy. I placed the dishes down. Vivian stared, confused. A thick, over-seasoned fish stew, a painfully sour salad, a custard that collapsed on its own plate. Dinner unraveled quickly. She took one bite of stew and immediately set her spoon down. Lena, what is this? I heard you weren't picky, I said lightly. The salad made her cough. The custard made her cover her mouth with a napkin. By the time I served the final dish, she shot to her feet. Adrian, take me home. I stood there, hands relaxed, eyes calm as she stormed to the door. Outside, I watched her through the window, gesturing dramatically at Adrian as he tried to soothe her. When the car finally disappeared down the road, I closed the door behind me. The house was quiet, filled with the fading smell of failed recipes and victory. Adrian turned back to me, voice stern. Lena, what was that? I looked up at him, letting a tear hover, just enough. I tried. I really did. But I'm so pressured, Adrian. I don't know how to make your mother like me. He sighed, gathering me into his arms. Just try. Don't cry. I let him hold me, my arms loose, my pulse calm. I was exactly where I needed to be, preparing for the biggest war of my life. I never thought I could slip into another version of myself this easily. In the weeks that followed, I walked around with gentle eyes, a soft voice, and careful hands whenever I touched Adrian. I kept a small smile on my lips even as Vivian picked apart every little detail about me, about the house, about everything I did. I did it all, not to save this marriage, but to make sure they never suspected that my real plan had been in motion from the moment I lay under that bed. Vivian kept coming over, each visit another needle in my skin. Lena, you really should rethink how you decorate. These walls, I'd repaint them all. Lena, that dress makes your figure look a bit heavy. Lena, Charleston women don't dress like that. I tilted my head, kept my voice soft enough not to trigger her pride. Yes, I understand. But in my pocket, my phone recorded every word, every sigh, every breath. Riley called me 3 times a week. Lena, we have enough evidence to burn the entire Carter family down. I don't want to burn them, I said. I want them to strike the match themselves. Riley exhaled. Fine, just don't let them break you any further. I won't. It's strange, realizing you can be deeply hurt and still strong enough to stare that hurt in the face without flinching. That night, the night I knew would become a turning point in this story, Adrian said, Mom wants to come over for dinner. She said she wants to clear the air. I smiled lightly. That's good. He looked a little surprised at how calm I was, but he didn't suspect anything. I stood in the kitchen, watching the pot boil on the stove. Then I turned it off. I wasn't going to cook. Not tonight. Not on the night I'd been planning since the moment I lay under that bed and heard the truth. I changed my clothes. Nothing flashy, nothing loud. A simple white dress with a soft boat neckline and fitted sleeves. I looked gentle, but not weak. Soft, but in control. When Vivian walked in, the evening breeze from the river slipped through the door and brushed against my dress. Her eyes on me weren't just judgment anymore. They were cautious. Hello, Lena, she said, polite smile with a trace of defense behind it. Hello, Mother, I answered quietly. Adrian set a bottle of wine on the table. Let's keep it simple tonight. Lena said she has a little surprise planned. Vivian raised an eyebrow. A surprise? I just smiled. We sat down at the table, polished oak, candles flickering, everything looking like a warm, respectable family dinner. Adrian poured the wine. Vivian tried to start. Lena, I think we got off on the wrong foot. If you could improve a few things, I believe we could get along. I set my glass down and folded my hands neatly in my lap. I stayed quiet for a few seconds, just long enough for her to think I was moved. Then I said, I have something I'd like you and Adrian to hear. Vivian tilted her head. Go ahead, dear. I took my phone out. Adrian thought I was about to apologize or share some vulnerable feelings. His expression softened, encouraging. Instead, I opened a file and pressed play. Vivian's voice filled the room. A little country girl, 1 year is all it takes to get that house from her. Adrian flinched, jumping to his feet. Lena, what are you doing? I kept my face calm. I thought your mom wanted to clear the air. Vivian's face drained of color. You recorded me? Accidentally, I replied in the sweetest tone I could manage. I left my phone in my pocket. You spoke so much. It just captured everything. I opened the second file, Adrian's voice now. She's soft. She doesn't know anything. That house will be mine soon enough. Adrian lunged for the phone, but I was faster. Don't, Adrian. There's plenty more. Vivian's panic shifted into anger, then back into pure fear. Lena, you're misunderstanding. I raised my hand, cutting her off. No need to explain. Right then, Riley stepped in through the back door, exactly on cue. Vivian and Adrian froze. Apologies for the intrusion, Riley said, voice sharp and cold, the voice of someone used to cornering liars. But Lena asked me to be here to make sure that tonight, no one twists the truth. Adrian stared at me. You brought your lawyer here? I looked at him. You brought your mother into my life first. Silence dropped over the room. Riley opened her folder. I have audio recordings, messages, and documentation showing that both of you conspired to take my client's property. This house is separate property, purchased before the marriage. Your deliberate attempt to manipulate and dispossess her qualifies as civil fraud. Vivian shot to her feet. Who do you think you are, too? I'm her attorney, Riley replied. And you are being recorded right now. I nodded toward the corner of the table. A second phone screen was glowing. Vivian looked at me like she was seeing me for the first time and realizing she'd misjudged me completely. I lifted my wine glass and took a slow sip. I assumed a woman as clever as you would realize this room has a lot of corners. Adrian stepped forward, voice rough. Lena, what do you want? You're destroying our marriage. I turned to him, my eyes cold as the Cooper River in winter. Our marriage? I let the words hang. Adrian, we never had a real marriage. Riley set the folder down on the table. Lena, what do you want to do? I looked straight at Vivian, the woman who believed she was the queen of Charleston. I just want you to leave my house, I said. Right now. Vivian opened her mouth like she wanted to protest, but one look at Riley's expression shut her down. Adrian tried again. Lena, don't do this. She was just trying to. I've heard enough. Vivian walked to the door, swallowing her fury. Come, Adrian. He glanced back at me, searching my face, hoping I'd cave. But I stood there, unmoved. Riley leaned closer and whispered, You did good. When the door finally closed, I exhaled, a long breath that felt like dropping a stone I'd been carrying on my chest. Not because I was afraid, but because I knew. The first act of this war was over. And I didn't feel weak anymore. I had just begun to take my life back. I left the old townhouse the next morning, not out of fear, but because I needed air. I needed distance from the click of Vivian's heels on the wooden floor, from Adrian's breath beside me at night that felt more suffocating than comforting, from the heavy perfume his mother sprayed all over the house as if she were marking her territory. The apartment I rented sat near the Ashley River, a tiny studio with a glass door that opened onto a balcony overlooking the rippling water and the small fishing boats of local fishermen. Not fancy, not glamorous, but it had the one thing I needed most: silence. I set my suitcase down. For the first time in weeks, I heard my own mind again. It wasn't chaotic anymore. It wasn't shaking. It held one thought clear, steady. You're free. I made myself a cup of ginger tea, the kind my mother loved. When she was alive, she used to tell me, "You can fight the whole world, sweetheart, but you have to let your heart rest first." I leaned against the window, watching droplets cling to the glass, and it struck me how right she'd been. What surprised me was that when you walk away from a place full of poison, your body doesn't scream, doesn't tremble, it simply settles. Like a glass of water after someone stops stirring it. That first night, I opened the small box I brought with me, a few clothes, a tiny photo album, and the wedding dress I had folded with shaking hands on the night I discovered the truth. I hung it up, not to remember, but to face it. To remind myself that not everything white is pure. Some things are wrapped in lies so delicate you need to peel them layer by layer just to reach the rotten core inside. My phone rang. It was Riley. "You okay?" she asked. "I'm okay," I said, and strangely, it was true. Her voice softened, yet held its strength. "Don't go back to that house unless you absolutely have to. Let Adrian deal with his mother. When people get exposed, they unravel on their own." "I know. Tomorrow night I'll come by. We'll map out the next steps." I looked down at the river, lights from the street lamps shimmering on the surface, and for the first time in a long time, I felt something I had forgotten: safety. The next few days moved in a rhythm I hadn't felt in months. Slow, steady, full of breath. I jogged every morning along the brick path lining the river. Charleston mornings had their own scent: damp moss, a hint of salt from the distant ocean, and the warm smell of roasting coffee from a tiny corner cafe. I stopped by that cafe every day, ordered a latte, and sat by the window, watching people live their quiet mornings. In 3 years with Adrian, I'd never once sat in a cafe alone. I was always busy thinking about what he wanted to eat, what he liked, what his mother would say. For 3 years, I shrank my life around someone who didn't deserve it. Now, sitting in that tiny room, my hands wrapped around a warm cup, I realized just how long ago I had lost myself. And I was slowly collecting those pieces again. My dad visited on Thursday afternoon. He brought 2 bags of groceries and a toolbox, as if I were still 10 years old and didn't know how to turn a faucet. "What are you doing to that sink?" I asked while heating the food he brought. "Reinforcing it," he said without looking up. "I think it's about to leak." I squinted at him. "Dad, it works perfectly fine." He paused, then sighed. "I know. I just need to do something. I can't just stand here and watch you hurt." I walked over and placed my hand on his shoulder. "I'm not hurting anymore, not in the way you think." He nodded slowly. "Good." We ate dinner salmon stew, pickled vegetable salad, cornbread from the market. Nothing fancy, nothing perfect. But it was the first meal I'd had in a long time where I didn't feel watched, judged, weighed, or measured. When he drove away in his old pickup, I stood on the balcony watching the taillights fade, my chest lighter than paper. On Friday, I visited MUSC Hospital for a checkup, an appointment I'd been putting off for weeks. I sat in the long hallway, fluorescent lights glowing on the white floor, cold but not unkind. I felt calm. Like every toxic thing I'd been carrying was no longer clinging to me. When I signed the documents, the pen ran out of ink. I searched my bag but couldn't find another, and then a man's voice behind me said, "Need a pen?" I turned. A doctor stood a few steps away, white coat, badge reading Dr. Ezra Whitaker. He held out a blue pen and smiled, a polite, quiet smile, like he wasn't trying to charm me, but simply being considerate. I accepted it. "Thank you, doctor." "Of course," he replied. "I saw you twisting that pen so hard I thought you'd snap it in half. Figured I should rescue it." I laughed. For the first time in weeks, the sound came out of me freely, without strain. "I'm Ezra," he said. "Cardiology. You here for yourself or someone else?" "For myself. Just a routine checkup." "Good. If you ever need help scheduling an appointment, ask the front desk. If they're swamped, here. He took out a small piece of paper with an internal extension number, his handwriting neat and steady. I took it, and something in his tone, in the way he spoke, made me feel safe without trying. I didn't know where my future was heading, but I knew with certainty I wasn't looking for someone new. I wasn't hoping to be saved. I just wanted to feel seen again, truly seen, after so many days of being dismissed. "Have a peaceful day," Ezra said before walking away. I watched him go, tall, composed, unhurried, then slipped the paper into my bag. Not a spark of romance, not the pull of a crush, just a tiny flicker of light in a day that had been wonderfully calm. And sometimes, it's the smallest flickers that save a life from the dark. When I returned to the apartment, I pushed open the door and felt the cool air inside settle around me. I put my bag down, hung up my jacket, looked around. No clicking heels from Vivian, no heavy sighs from Adrian, no criticism, no judgment, no tension. Only the sound of wind from the balcony and the gold shimmer of light on the river. I sat on the floor, pulling my knees to my chest, not crying, not shaking, just breathing. Breathing like someone who'd finally come back to life. That night, for the first time in months, I slept deeply. No nightmares, no jolting awake, no fear tugging at me in the dark. And the next morning, when sunlight brushed across the balcony, I opened my eyes with a single thought. I've returned to myself. I saw Ezra again 2 weeks later, not at the hospital, but in a setting so ordinary that I had to stop for a second to make sure I wasn't imagining it. It was a cool Sunday morning. The air carried a faint salt smell from the distant ocean, and the Charleston breeze rustled the leaves hanging over the porches. I stopped by my usual riverside cafe for a latte, and just as I reached the counter, I heard a voice low, clear, and familiar. "Miss Morgan, right?" I turned. Ezra was standing in the line beside me, a medical textbook in one hand, watching me with a look that was both polite and warm. I smiled. "Ah, Dr. Whitaker." "Just call me Ezra," he said. I nodded. "Okay, Ezra." He smiled, not the kind of smile Adrian used to flash to impress people, not a grin designed to charm anyone, just a small, honest curve of his mouth. "I hope you don't think I'm following you," he said. "I don't," I replied. "I come here a lot too." "Good," he said, glancing up at the menu. "I've been trying to cut back on caffeine, but it looks like today's another failure." I let out a quiet laugh. There was something unusual about Ezra. He made the air feel lighter without trying to make it light. He didn't dodge seriousness, didn't act like he'd seen it all, didn't watch people like they were puzzles to solve. He just showed up. Fully. Something I hadn't had once in 3 years with Adrian. My drink came out. Ezra took his cup too, testing the temperature with a light tap of his fingers. "I heard from the front desk that you moved out of the old townhouse," he said. I froze for a moment. "Yeah, I did." "Was it something serious?" His tone wasn't nosy, not intrusive, just concerned. I looked out through the cafe window, where sunlight scattered across the water like strips of gold. "Not serious," I said slowly. "I just needed to leave a place that was never really mine." Ezra didn't push. He knew where to stop. He understood that not every question deserved an answer. A man who knows when to stop, those are rare. "Would you like to walk by the river with me?" he asked. I blinked. "Now?" "If you're not busy," he said with a small smile. "If you are, I'll still apologize for interrupting." I looked at the latte in my hand, then at the light spilling over the street. I wasn't looking for someone new. I didn't want to step into anything where my heart could get hurt again. But walking next to a kind man wasn't betrayal, wasn't dangerous, wasn't some reckless leap into romance. So I nodded. "Let's go." We walked along the old brick path that followed the Ashley River. The waters shimmered in the sun. Boats bobbed along the edge. It was such a beautiful morning that it made my chest feel tight, like I wasn't used to this level of peace. Ezra kept a good distance between us, enough space that I never once felt crowded. "What do you do for work?" he asked. "I'm a UI designer, user interface." "Oh?" he said. So you turn complicated things into something simple for other people. Something like that. Just like me, he smiled. Except I do it with people's hearts and you do it with their minds. I laughed. That's one way to put it. A soft breeze blew my hair to one side. Ezra glanced at me for a moment, but he didn't comment on how I looked, didn't throw out some lazy compliment. He just tilted his head slightly, as if silently checking whether I was cold. That's when I started to notice. He was attentive in a way Adrian could never be. Do you live alone? He asked. Yes, just moved out. For now, it's temporary. Temporary until when? I don't know. Good, he said. Not knowing is fine. People only really need to know they're walking in the right direction. I looked at him, such a simple sentence. But it landed somewhere deep. What about you? Who do you live with? I asked. Me, he said. Just myself and a bunch of plants on the balcony. They're dramatic, though. Ignore them for one day and half of them quit on you. I laughed out loud. I'm terrible with plants, I admitted. That's okay. Not everyone is born to take care of plants, he said. What matters is you learn how to take care of yourself first. I went quiet for a moment. Ezra turned his eyes back to the water. Someone once made me forget that, I said softly. He glanced at me, didn't interrupt, didn't rush, so I continued. And I let my world revolve around that person for far too long. Ezra's voice dropped lower, calm. Lena, if someone makes you shrink yourself, they don't deserve a place in your life. I looked down at my hands. Maybe. Not maybe, he said gently. Definitely. It was strange. He used a word as firm as definitely, but it didn't feel like pressure, didn't feel like he was cornering me, didn't feel like he was trying to be a hero. He was just stating what he believed and leaving me free to take as much or as little of it as I could handle. We kept walking until the sun climbed higher, the light brighter and clearer. I felt like the two of us were simply moving with the rhythm of the city, slow, warm, steady. When we reached the curve of the path, where an old oak tree arched over the river with sheets of Spanish moss hanging down, Ezra stopped. I come here every Sunday morning, he said, to remind myself that not everything beautiful has to be loud. I looked up at the thick branches leaning over the water, and I understood. It wasn't just his words that felt warm, it was his presence. A person who doesn't try to take up space in your life, but somehow makes your world feel a little wider. On the walk back toward the cafe parking lot, Ezra slipped a hand into his coat pocket. Lena, I don't want you to think I'm rushing anything. He hesitated, a small, honest hesitation that only truly decent men seem to have. But if you'd like, we could walk that path again next week. I looked at him. There was no expectation in his eyes, no demand, no hidden agenda, just an invitation, without strings. Okay, I said. I like that path too. He smiled. Then I'll look forward to it. We said goodbye. I drove home, and for the first time in weeks, my heart didn't feel chained to Vivian's poison or Adrian's honey-coated lies. I didn't love Ezra. I wasn't even sure I liked him in a romantic way. But I felt something I'd never felt with any man before. He didn't make me afraid. I didn't feel smaller around him. I didn't feel like I needed to explain myself. I didn't feel like I had to brace or perform. Ezra didn't kick open the door to my heart. He just placed a key nearby and stepped far enough back to let me decide whether I ever wanted to pick it up. And that kindness, that quiet, patient kindness, was the first thing that truly started to heal me. When I finally signed the divorce papers with Adrian, I didn't feel like I was losing anything. If anything, it felt like placing down a heavy stone I'd spent far too long convincing myself was a gift. Adrian only signed after Riley laid every piece of evidence on the table. The recordings, the messages, the quiet conversations he thought no one heard. He didn't apologize. Not once. He blamed the alcohol, blamed his mother, blamed stress. I said nothing. I no longer needed excuses to stitch wounds I'd already closed. I stayed in my small apartment by the Ashley River, and those quiet Sunday walks with Ezra slowly became a rhythm steady, gentle, unfailingly kind. It wasn't instant love. It wasn't burning passion. It was presence. Simple, consistent presence. A year passed in the rhythm of small things. A latte that didn't taste bitter anymore. A scarf Ezra handed me when the weather shifted suddenly cold. A small bundle of wildflowers he left at my door, no note attached. A quiet evening when I told him everything. About Vivian, about Adrian, about the townhouse that once felt like a trap disguised as a home. When I finished, he simply said, "Lena, anybody who survives something like that and stays gentle is incredibly strong." I didn't argue. I just felt tears fall quiet, unexpected. Maybe because for the first time in my life, someone didn't ask why I had been weak, but saw the strength in me before I saw it in myself. We married 2 years later, a small ceremony on Folly Beach, where the wind carried the taste of salt and the ocean whispered secrets people never dared to tell. No big crowd, no extravagant dress, no domineering mother-in-law watching me from head to toe looking for flaws. Just me, Ezra, my father, Riley, a handful of close friends, and a simple arch covered in white flowers that Ezra and my dad put together the night before. When Ezra held my hand, I felt like that hand wasn't pulling me into a new life. It was returning me to myself. To the version of me I had lost in the warped expectations of the Carter family. He leaned close, voice trembling a little with the wind. "I can't promise I'll get everything right, but I promise to be kind to you, even on my worst days." I smiled. Kindness is enough. My father wiped his eyes quickly. There was a time he feared he'd lose me forever in that toxic marriage. Now he looked at me like someone who'd just returned from a battlefield. Not wounded, but glowing. We didn't rush into having children. Ezra said I deserved a few years to live fully in my new life. I agreed. For 2 years we walked every street in Charleston, past the old red brick houses, under the century-old oak trees dripping with Spanish moss like old silver threads. He bought me a small film camera and said, "So you can remember the things you used to forget to look at." And I had forgotten them. The blue Charleston sky, the salty breeze, the sound of kids running across old brick courtyards, even the sound of my own voice when I wasn't bracing for judgment. I started taking photos, old men playing checkers at the park, cats stretched out on historic porches, boats rocking gently at sunset. And in every photo, I saw me. A version of me I thought was gone. In our 3rd year, Ella was born. She arrived quiet and soft, as light as a petal, with eyes round and bright like the Charleston sun rising over the water. Ezra held her and whispered, voice breaking. I didn't know my heart could stretch enough to hold another whole life. Watching him with our daughter, I knew I was living a life I never dared to imagine. 2 years later, Jonah arrived, a little boy who loved opening things, unscrewing everything, asking 100 questions a day as if he wanted to figure out how the world worked from the inside out. Just like his father, I said. No, Ezra laughed, just like his mother. His mother who peeled back every layer of her life to see who was standing in the shadows. I laughed. The laugh of someone who had walked through darkness and chosen light. And when May was born, our little one with a laugh like glass bells, I finally understood what my mother once told me. A good family isn't a place without conflict. It's a place where you never have to shrink yourself. With Ezra, I never had to shrink. One afternoon, when Jonah had just turned 6, we stopped by a little used bookstore on King Street, and there I saw her. Harper. Adrian's daughter with his new wife. She was about 10, standing in the children's section, looking overwhelmed by the rows of books around her. I recognized her first. She had Adrian's eyes, but not his gaze. Hers was clear, soft, honest, a look only children who haven't been broken yet can hold. I approached slowly. "What kind of stories do you like?" I asked gently. Harper looked up. "I'm not sure. I want something about strong girls, but I don't know where to start." I pulled Little Women from the shelf and handed it to her. "I think you'll like this one." Harper flipped through a few pages. "Thank you," she smiled, a smile that softened my heart. "This girl Jo, she's like me." "In what way?" I asked. "She's brave, but she also feels left behind sometimes." I froze. A child doesn't say that unless they've felt it. Before I could respond, Adrian's new wife called from the next aisle. "Harper, where are you? Oh, there you are." She looked at me, surprised, and a few seconds later, Adrian walked into the aisle. My heart didn't race, didn't shake, didn't ache. It just felt distant. Like seeing someone you once knew, standing blurry in the backdrop of a life that no longer fits you. He saw me, stopped. "Lena." "Hello." There was a silence, not heavy with resentment nor filled with old memories. Just two people who once shared a chapter but now stood on completely different pages. Harper tugged my hand. "Thank you for the book," she said brightly. I brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. "Tell me what you think of it when you finish." Then I walked away. Outside, the sunlight warmed my shoulders. So warm, I closed my eyes for a moment. And it hit me. I didn't win against Adrian. I didn't take revenge on Vivienne. I didn't reclaim a house or a reputation. What I truly reclaimed was my heart. And I placed it in the hands of a man who held it without trembling, only with gentleness. Some days, I believed I had closed that old door for good. I had a home, a steady job, my dad, Riley, Ezra, and 3 children who felt like the most beautiful pieces of my life, all fitting together. But the past has a way of finding you, not loudly, not with open hatred. Sometimes it just walks by, like an old shadow passing across your path on a day you never expected it. The first sign came on a March afternoon when Charleston was still a little cold, but the sun had begun to soften again. I was standing by the front door, retying May's shoes. She was 7 and somehow still put them on the wrong feet every single time, when my phone buzzed. A text from Riley. "Lena, we need to talk. Vivienne Carter just went bankrupt." I froze for a moment. The ocean breeze lifted my hair, sunlight slanted through the branches of the old oak tree outside, Spanish moss hanging like worn silver threads. My life now felt like it was made of light. Safe, warm, whole, and yet, in that moment, I felt a thin streak of darkness stretching toward me from far away. I called Riley right away. "What happened?" I asked. Riley sighed. "Her spa's shut down. The house has been seized. She's in debt hundreds of thousands. She's renting some tiny apartment in North Charleston now. No one standing by her, not even family." I was quiet. "You want the rest?" Riley asked. I looked down at May's face, her little head tilted back, smiling into the sun like the world was nothing but simple, bright things. No, I didn't want to drag any shadow into the sky I had worked so hard to keep clear for my kids. "Later," I said softly. "Lena, don't feel like you owe her sympathy. People like Vivienne, they do this to themselves." "I know." My voice wasn't icy, it wasn't aching either, it was just even. Like I was hearing news about someone distant. The second sign came a week later. That night, Ezra was making dinner for the kids. Pasta, the one Ella called Dad's pasta that only tastes good if he sings. I was hanging laundry in the backyard when my phone buzzed again. This time, it was an unknown number. I picked up. "Is this Lena?" A young woman's voice, shaky, on the edge of panic. Are you related to Adrian Carter?" I went still. No, not related. Not anymore. But I answered, "I'm his ex-wife. What's going on?" He was in a car accident. He's in the ER at MUSC. Her voice broke. "They need blood. It's a rare type. There are only a few matches in the system." Inside the house, I could hear Ella's footsteps, Jonah laughing, May asking Ezra, "Daddy, why isn't the pasta dancing like me?" The sounds of my present, of the life that was mine. A life Adrian no longer had any part in. "Why are you calling me?" I asked. "Your name is still listed, as next of kin in the old records." I closed my eyes. There was a time I wanted that label erased forever. But fate has a strange sense of humor. "I'll come," I said quietly. When I stepped back into the house, Ezra looked up, his expression already open, listening, without a word. "What happened?" he asked. "Adrian," I said. "Car accident." Ezra didn't ask how I felt. He just said, "I'll go with you." I nodded. We left the house with the sound of 3 children laughing behind us, the contrast digging into my chest in a way I couldn't quite name. MUSC at night felt like a ship cutting through fog. Cold fluorescent light, long, silent corridors, machines humming steadily in the background. At the ER doors, a nurse stepped toward me. "You're Lena?" "Yes." "He's in bad shape," she said. "Swerved to miss a deer. The front of the car hit the barrier hard. We need B-negative blood and our supply is low." I swallowed. I have B-negative blood. Ezra placed a hand on my back, not to push, not to pull, just to remind me I wasn't alone. "I'll donate," I said. The nurse led me to a small room. As she worked, drawing blood, writing details on a chart, I stared at the ceiling, white panels lit by harsh hospital light. A part of me wanted to get up and walk away. Another part said, "Why help the man who betrayed you?" But there was another part now, the part of me that had become a mother, the part that had learned, the part that had grown, and it whispered, "Not because he deserves it, but because you refused to become what Vivian was." That was my answer. Afterward, they moved me to a chair in the waiting area. Ezra handed me a cup of water. "You okay?" he asked. I leaned my head back against the wall. "I don't feel happy," I said. "But I don't feel hurt either. I just feel lighter." Ezra nodded, saying nothing. I went on. "I didn't do it for him. I did it for Harper. She doesn't deserve to lose her father that way." Ezra's mouth curved into a quiet smile. "I know," he said. "And that's what makes you the strongest woman I know." I didn't answer, just looked down at my hands, the same hands that used to tremble in the Carter house, now resting steady in my lap. Then, a figure stepped out of the hallway. Vivian. She stood there, thin, almost frail, coat hanging crooked from her shoulders, hair unbrushed, silver and wild. The woman who once glowed with polished control now looked hollowed out, eyes sunken from too many sleepless, desperate nights. I recognized her first. It took her a few beats to recognize me. When she did, her eyes widened in disbelief. "Lena?" Her voice cracked. Why are you here?" I stood. "I donated blood," I said. Her hand flew to her mouth. No tears, no dramatic sobbing, just a visible trembling, like her body didn't know how to respond. I never imagined I'd see Vivian, the woman who once called me a little country girl, standing in front of me like this, bent, weathered, small. She dropped her gaze, her voice breaking into pieces. "Lena, I don't deserve your thanks, but I'm grateful." I looked at her. No hatred, no burning anger, no sharp edges left inside me, just a quiet distance. "I didn't do it for you," I said. "I did it for Harper." Vivian nodded, tears sliding down cheeks that had lost their old sharpness. "She needs her father," she whispered. "I know that." She turned away, trying to preserve what little pride she had left. She didn't hug me. I didn't hug her. Forgiveness, I realized, is sometimes nothing more than losing the desire to hurt someone back, even when they once hurt you. Ezra and I left the hospital. The Charleston night wind rushed around us, pushing my hair back from my face. He opened the car door and said, "Lena, what you did tonight, most people couldn't." I glanced at my reflection in the car window, a face more grounded, more whole, no longer carrying the dust of those years when I let myself be diminished. "Ezra," I exhaled. "I don't know if what I did was right." His voice came low, steady, soft as a breath. "Right or wrong isn't the point. What matters is that you chose kindness, not because they earned it, but because you deserve to be the kind of person you can live with." I closed my eyes, and I understood. That night, I didn't save Adrian. I saved myself. From bitterness, from rusted nails of resentment, from the darkness that once held me for far too long. I had stepped past him, past all of them. And I knew, deep down, I would never walk back into that shadow again. After that night at the hospital, life slipped back into its usual rhythm. But quietly, something inside me shifted. There are moments when you know you've crossed an invisible threshold. No applause, no one witnessing it, but you feel it. Deep in your bones, in your breath, in the way your heart settles. I was no longer the woman who once trembled in the Carter kitchen. And slowly, life began sending little signs to remind me of that. Ella was the first one who showed me how much had changed. Her 13th birthday passed in a swirl of vanilla cake, laughter, and a house full of kids who adored her. Nothing extravagant, just small, warm, and filled with joy. Later that evening, after everyone had left, she ran up and hugged me. "Mom, I have news," she whispered, shy but glowing. I brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. "What is it, sweetheart?" "I got into the advanced math program. Mr. Evans says I think like a real engineer." I froze for a second. Ella, my little girl, who once feared thunderstorms and hid in my arms when the sky cracked, now stood almost shoulder high, her eyes bright like morning sun. I held her close. Not because I was surprised, but because I knew how far she'd come, how far we'd all come. "I'm so proud of you," I said. "More than you know." Ella blushed, then skipped off to her room, and for a brief moment I saw a shadow behind her, a shadow of the girl I used to be, walking forward through fear and hope. But this time, my daughter wasn't walking alone. Jonah was growing too, in his own way. One Saturday, I took him to baseball practice. He loved the field, loved the running, the dirt, the cheers, the feeling of hitting a ball clean and sprinting home. That day, the coach called me over. "Lena, I want you to see this." He handed me a notice about the regional tryouts. "Jonah's been selected for Charleston's youth team. The kid has real talent." I looked out at Jonah, hair sticking up, face flushed, running like the whole world was cheering for him, and I felt my heart go soft. I promised myself, right there on that field, my children would never feel small in their own home, never be judged for breathing wrong, never be told they weren't enough. On the drive home, Jonah leaned forward from the back seat, unable to contain himself. "Mom, I made the team. Coach told me." His smile was so bright, it felt like watching a sunrise. "Are you happy?" he asked. "I'm so happy," I said. "Happy enough to shout it at the ocean." He laughed, the kind of laugh that makes a mother believe in good things again. Mamie, sensitive, stubborn one, found her own turning point. One evening, I heard violin music drifting from the living room, soft, shaky, searching, like a child trying to tell a story in a language she'd only just learned. I walked downstairs and saw May, tiny, bent slightly forward, violin nearly half her size, pulling the bow with trembling determination. Ezra stood behind her, one hand resting gently on her shoulder, a steady anchor. "I know you can do it," he said softly. "Why?" May asked. "I keep messing up." Ezra smiled. "Because you're trying, because you listen, and because you have something to say." May stared at her instrument, then lifted her eyes to me, big, dark, and full of that quiet strength she'd carried since birth. I sat on the floor and listened as she played again. This time the notes were still imperfect, but they were hers, full of heart. When she finished, I said, "May, you have a gift." "What gift?" "Ears that hear what people feel, even when they don't say it. That's rare." She flushed. "I just wanted to play for you." I smiled. "Then keep going." She did, and the music filled the house like a soft kind of hope. Those moments, Ella, Jonah, May, stacked on top of each other like rich soil around the roots of a growing tree. A tree I wasn't sure, for many years, I was capable of tending. Was I strong enough? Gentle enough? Whole enough? But slowly, I realized, the tree was thriving. Not because I was perfect, not because I never faltered, but because I had Ezra, a man who never tried to replace anyone, only to stand beside me like a steady lighthouse in the changing tide. One night, after the kids fell asleep, Ezra joined me on the porch. I have something to tell you, he said. I turned toward him. The porch light cast a warm circle around us. What's going on? He handed me an envelope. I finished the paperwork, the Samuel Morgan Scholarship Fund. I froze. That was my father's name. The man who held me steady through storms, who rebuilt what I thought was shattered, who never once let me fall alone. You named it after my dad? I whispered. Ezra nodded gently. There are kids out there like you once were. Bright, brave, just waiting for someone to open a door for them. I want to help open that door, starting here in Charleston. I couldn't speak for a moment, partly from shock, partly from love. Ezra, you didn't have to. He looked at me with the kind of softness that can rebuild a life. I know, he said, but I wanted to. I rested my hand on his. My dad would be so proud. And you? He asked quietly. I leaned against him. I'm lucky, I said. So lucky. Happiness doesn't always arrive with fireworks. Sometimes it slips in gently, in violin notes, in baseball fields, in scholarship papers signed under warm porch light. It's the kind of happiness that stays, the long kind, the steady kind. And just when I thought everything had settled into place, another door opened. A message from Harper, Adrian's daughter. Just 3 words. Miss Lena? Then, I need to see you. Harper's message came on a night that was almost too quiet. The kids were upstairs. Ezra was in the kitchen, washing dishes. I was curled up on the couch, bare feet sinking into the soft rug, the warm glow of a table lamp pooling over my legs. Our little house on Trad Street was breathing that familiar, gentle peace. And then my phone lit up. Miss Lena, I need to see you. Even though Harper was Adrian's daughter, I never imagined I'd see her name appear on my screen. After everything that happened, she drifted out of my life. Not by choice, just swallowed by the storm of adults and their decisions. I never blamed her. She was just a child in the middle of a hurricane. I called her back. Her voice came through the speaker, small and thin, like wind slipping under a door. Miss Lena? Are you busy? No, sweetheart. Where are you? Outside. On the bench near the old post office. Can you come? I glanced out the window. Charleston night lay over the street like a thin shawl, soft, cool, quiet. I grabbed my coat, told Ezra I had to step out for a bit, and walked into the blurred edges of the evening. Harper was curled up on the bench, arms around her knees. The streetlight above her turned her hair into a faint halo. I sat down beside her. What's going on, Harper? She didn't look at me. Her fingers dug into each other. Miss Lena, I don't really know how to say this, but I need help, and I didn't know who else to call. I rested my hand lightly on her back. You can say anything. I'm here. She took a deep breath, like someone about to step into a cold room. I found something, a letter, from my mom, from Vivian. My body went still. A letter to who? To you. She reached into her bag and pulled out a slightly crumpled envelope tied with an old piece of string. On the front was handwriting I knew too well, the kind that made my chest tighten. For Lena, to be opened if, one day, I am gone. I touched the edge of the envelope. It felt thin and cold, like it had been sitting in the dark, holding its breath for years. I found it in the cabinet under the stairs, Harper whispered. After Mom died, Dad cleared everything out, but the letter, I kept it. I looked into her sad brown eyes. Why are you bringing it to me now? Because I was scared, she said. I was scared to know the truth, scared to know why she wrote to you and not to Dad, scared to see things I didn't want to believe. And now? Harper bit her lip. Now I need to know. I nodded. I opened the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper, the handwriting jittery, like every word had been wrestled out of her. I read it, and with each line it felt like someone was pulling open an old wound I thought had already scarred over. Lena, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone. I don't want to leave without telling you the truth. I know what Adrian did. I know he cornered you. I know he tried to destroy you. Lena, I didn't fight it. He controlled everything. I watched it happen and didn't have the courage to stop it. I was weak in a way a mother is never supposed to be. I'm writing because I need you to know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I didn't stand beside you, even when my heart wanted to. I'm sorry I chose silence. If Harper grows up and needs the truth about who her mother was, I'm asking you to tell her, but only when the time is right. And Lena, if the day ever comes when Harper needs you, please don't turn her away. Vivian Carter. I had to set the letter down for a moment just to breathe. Harper sat quietly beside me, eyes shining. So, she really knew? Harper whispered. She knew what he did? I folded the letter gently and placed it back in her hands. Yes, your mother knew, and she regretted it. The only thing she couldn't bring herself to do was stand up to your dad. Harper's head sank down to her knees. I hate him, she said. But I hate that I hate him. I don't want to be like him. I don't want to be cruel. I wrapped my arms around her, pulling her close like a little girl who'd just scraped both knees on the pavement. You are not like him, I said. Harper, you're like your mom, gentle, observant, and braver than you think. She started to shake, and years of held-back emotion broke loose in messy, muffled sobs. A child should never have to carry that much pain. But the world doesn't ask what children can handle. I didn't hush her. I didn't hurry her. I just stayed. Maybe that was the one thing Vivian was truly asking of me in that letter. When she finally calmed down, Harper wiped her face and said, "Can you help me?" "Of course," I said, "but tell me what you need." She looked up, and for a moment I saw both the frightened child and the young woman she was starting to become. "I want to leave the Carter house," she said. The words hung in the air like cold fog. "Dad, he's not himself anymore," Harper whispered. "He lost everything, and he changed. I don't feel safe." A chill passed through me, not from fear, from recognition. I knew the shape of that darkness. I'd lived inside it. "Where do you want to go?" I asked. She looked at me like she was afraid hope might break if she held it too tightly. "If it's possible, I want to stay with you, even just for a while." Her words hit me like a wave, a sharp pull, then a deep warmth. I knew it wouldn't be simple. No judge would hand over custody because of one conversation on a park bench at night. But Harper wasn't asking about paperwork. She was asking if there was a safe place for her heart to land. I placed my hand over hers. "Harper, I will never abandon you. But if you stay with me, we have to do it the right way. I'll protect you, and I also have to protect my children. Do you understand?" She nodded, lips trembling like they weren't used to carrying hope. "Tomorrow," I said, "I'll take you to see a lawyer. We'll do everything properly." She let out a long breath, the kind you only exhale when you see a door where you thought there was only a wall. On the drive to drop her off, I watched her in the rearview mirror. A child sitting still, eyes filled with the kind of fear adults create and kids don't know what to do with. I saw myself 15 years younger, crawling under a bed as a joke and accidentally overhearing a truth that shattered my life. It felt like I was driving through two timelines at once, one road taking me toward Harper and one pulling me back to that younger version of myself, naive, hopeful, and deeply wounded. Maybe that's what fate does, circles back to test just how far you've grown. When we reached the corner near the Carter house, Harper didn't open the door right away. "Miss Lena, if my mom were still alive, what do you think she'd want?" The question landed like a knock on an old door inside me. I held her gaze. "She'd want this," I said. "She'd want you free, safe, living the life you deserve." Harper nodded, and I saw something new flicker in her eyes, a small, stubborn seed of courage. "I'm glad I texted you," she said quietly. "I am too." She stepped out of the car. Before she turned away, she looked back and whispered, "Please, don't give up on me." "Never," I said. I waited until she disappeared inside. Then I turned the car around and drove back toward the light of my own home. Toward Ezra, toward 3 sleeping children, toward a peace I had bled and fought to build. And I knew, starting tomorrow, that peace would be tested. But this time, I wouldn't be walking into the storm alone. The next morning, as I stepped out onto the front porch, Charleston carried that early day mixture of ocean salt and cool air. Even the sparrows on the roof hadn't fully woken yet, but my phone already had. A message from Riley. "Lena, something's happened. Adrian knows." I froze. My hand trembled, not out of fear, but because I knew exactly what this meant. A very dark chapter of my life was coming back, demanding answers. Ezra walked onto the porch beside me, hair still tousled, holding 2 cups of coffee. "What's going on?" he asked, setting the cups on the wooden table. I handed him my phone. He read the message, jaw tightening just a little. Then he placed a steady hand on my shoulder. "You're not facing any of this alone," he said quietly. I met his eyes that felt like a promise without needing to be spoken aloud. I nodded. "Then let's begin," I said. At school pickup, Harper was waiting. She ran toward me with her backpack weighing down one shoulder. Her eyes weren't as panicked as last night, but still too worried for a girl her age. "You came," she exhaled. "I told you I would." Harper gripped her backpack strap hard. "Dad found out. He got angry. He said I'm not allowed to see you anymore." I inhaled slowly. Old shadows moved inside me. Memories of Adrian monitoring every phone call, every step, every breath I took. But Harper was not going to become a repeat of my past. Not if I had anything to say about it. "Are you scared?" I asked. Harper nodded, but her gaze stayed forward, steady in a way that told me she had a flame inside her, trying so hard not to go out. "But I'm not going back," she whispered. "I just want to breathe." I squeezed her hand. "Then today, we start doing things the right way." That afternoon, we sat in Attorney Jameson's office, a small space on Meeting Street Sharp, organized, quietly intense. Riley had been right. He was the kind of lawyer who understood cases involving unsafe homes better than most. Jameson looked at Harper gently. "Tell me why you feel unsafe," he said. Harper looked at me first, silent permission. I nodded. She took a breath. Her voice trembled like a violin string plucked too hard. "My dad drinks. A lot. He yells. He throws things. Once, he smashed a bottle on the floor. I'm scared he'll hurt himself. Or me." My hands balled into fists under the table. Jameson kept his voice even. "And have you witnessed violence? Directly?" Harper swallowed hard. "He hasn't hit me, but he hits the wall. Hard. And once he said my mom died because she couldn't handle the truth. I know that's not true, but I didn't dare say anything." I closed my eyes, not out of shock, but because I knew that pain. I knew what it meant to live inside the orbit of a man who mistook control for love and fear for power. Harper continued, voice barely above a breath. "I just want to live somewhere I'm not scared." Jameson nodded, then turned to me. "Lena, I need to ask you this clearly. Are you prepared to take her into your home? The legal process will be long, and Adrian will fight." I looked at Harper. A child was not asking to live a perfect life. She was asking to live a safe one. The answer rose in me before I even formed the words. "I'm ready." Harper burst into tears. I held her lightly, like holding a bird that had fallen too many times. Jameson made a note. "Then we proceed." That evening, I came home to the smell of rosemary and laughter. Riley had taken Harper to stay with a trusted relative for the night, far from Adrian's reach. When I stepped inside my own home, the porch light glowed, the kids chased each other near the garden, and Ezra was cutting rosemary sprigs for tomorrow's lunch. I stood at the door for a long moment. This was my home, my peace, my rebuilt life. And now, there would be room for one more child who needed shelter. Ezra approached and brushed a hand along my back. "You look like someone who just walked through a storm," he murmured. I leaned against him. "Harper needs a safe place." Ezra nodded softly. "I know." "Do you think it'll affect the kids?" I asked. My voice came out smaller than I intended. Ezra met my eyes. "Lena, that girl needs a light. You used to be a child who didn't have one. Now you are the light. There's nothing wrong with that." I swallowed hard. "I'm just scared." He shook his head gently. "You don't have to be. We're doing the right thing, and I'm with you, every step." I held on to him for a moment strong, because he was holding the part of me that felt tired. But life never lets calm settle for long. Around 10 p.m., the doorbell exploded through the house. May yelled from upstairs. "Mom, who is it?" "It's okay, sweetie, we'll check." I opened the door, and there he was, Adrian. Red-rimmed eyes, shirt wrinkled, the stench of alcohol rolling off him like heat. The night air cut through the space between us, carrying a piece of the past I'd spent years burying. "Lena." His voice cracked like glass. "What are you doing?" Before I could answer, Ezra stepped beside me, calm, solid, immovable. Adrian flinched at the sight of him. I steadied my breath. "What are you doing here, Adrian?" He scanned behind me, desperate, wild. "Harper told me everything. She said she wants to come here. What did you do to her? What lies did you put in her head?" "I didn't put anything in her head," I said quietly. "She doesn't feel safe at home." Adrian let out a broken laugh, sharp, bitter. "Not feel safe? What do you know about safety? You left me. You destroyed my family." Ezra's voice came low, steady. "Adrian, you should leave." Adrian swung his glare toward Ezra. "And you think she's perfect, don't you? You know what she used to be? A runner, a coward." The silence cracked like ice beneath us. I didn't step back. I didn't shrink. I simply stared at the man he had become. "Lena," he said, voice shaking, hand pointing at me. "I'm going to get my daughter back. I'm not letting you turn her against me." I stepped forward, meeting him at the edge of the porch light. "Harper isn't betraying her family," I said softly but firmly. "She just wants to live." He went silent. Ezra moved closer, the line in his voice unmistakable. "If you stay here one more minute, I'm calling the police." Adrian looked at me again, not with anger this time, but with a kind of shattered despair, like a man grasping for the last thing he thinks he owns. "Lena." His voice broke. "If I lose Harper, I lose everything." I swallowed, a bitter taste rising in my throat. "You already lost her, Adrian," I said. "You just refused to see it." Ezra closed the door before he could answer. The sound of it echoed inside my chest, sharp, final, clean. Ezra cupped my face gently. "You okay?" I nodded, though my voice trembled. I feel so sad for Harper. She shouldn't have to go through this." Ezra wrapped his arms around me. "Tomorrow," he said, "we protect her. We do what's right." And in that moment, in his arms, in our home, in the quiet after the storm, I knew this truth clearly. I was no longer the woman who trembled under the Carter kitchen light. I had a family. I had strength. I had light. And somewhere out there, a little girl was waiting for me to open the door that would lead her out of the dark. The day we walked into the Charleston courthouse, I held Harper's hand like it was a small rope tying the past and the future together. She wore a gray sweater Riley had grabbed for her the night before. Her face was pale with worry, but her eyes were steady in a way that didn't belong to a child. Not hardened, just decided. The kind of steadiness you only see in kids who had to grow up faster than they should. Ezra walked on my other side, carrying that quiet calm like a cloak around us. Because of him, my chest didn't tighten the way it once did whenever I had to face Adrian. I heard Adrian's footsteps behind us, heavy, tense, soaked in the dry smell of old alcohol. I didn't turn around. I didn't have to. I'd known that silhouette long enough to know there was hardly any life left inside it. The hearing began with cold questions, scattered documents, and the careful, measuring looks of the judge and the panel. And then, it was Harper's turn. She stood at the microphone, two small fists clenched, her body tiny at the witness stand. I saw her knees tremble. Every instinct in me screamed to run up there, to wrap her in my arms and shield her from all of it. But Ezra's hand pressed gently against my back, reminding me of what I already knew. Harper needed this moment, her own moment to speak her truth in her own voice. The attorney leaned forward. "Harper, do you feel safe living with your father?" Harper looked at Adrian, then looked at me, searching for an anchor. Then she said, "No." A single word, but it dropped into that courtroom like a hinge snapping off a long closed door. "Why not?" the attorney asked. Harper drew in a breath so deep her shoulders rose. "Because my dad gets angry really fast," she said softly. "He yells, he throws things. One time, he said my mom died because she couldn't handle this family. But I know my mom. She would never just give up like that." Her voice wavered, tears gathered at the edge of her lashes. "I don't want to hate him," she whispered, "but I'm scared, and I'm tired of being scared every day." Something inside me cracked open hearing her say it out loud. I watched Adrian lower his head, his shoulders shaking. It wasn't remorse, not the clean kind. It was collapse. The attorney lifted a piece of paper. "Harper, do you recognize this letter?" "Yes," she said. "I found it after my mom died." "And what did your mother want?" Harper bit her lip. Her voice turned thin, like mist. "She wanted, if I ever needed the truth, that Miss Lena would be the one to tell me. And, if I ever needed a safe place, that she wouldn't turn me away." The courtroom went so quiet you could hear a pen tap against the bench. The judge spoke. "Harper, where do you want to live?" There was no hesitation. "With Miss Lena," she said. "And Dad Ezra, and Ella, Jonah, and May." My heart skipped a beat. Dad Ezra, I looked over at him. He wasn't crying, but his eyes were shining like a storm was gathering somewhere far away. Adrian's attorney sprang to his feet. "Your Honor, her biological father." But Adrian cut him off, and for the first time in a very long time, his voice wasn't loud or aggressive or defensive. It was just lost. "That's enough," he said. Every head in the room turned toward him. He stood, unsteady but strangely clear, like a man who'd finally realized just how far down he'd fallen. "I know what I've done," he said quietly, "and I've got nothing left to argue." He looked at Harper, eyes red, face crumpling. "I'm sorry," he said. "Daddy's sorry." Harper bowed her head, shoulders shaking. Then Adrian turned to the judge. "If she wants to go, I won't stop her." A file snapped closed somewhere in the room, and then came the words I never imagined I would hear one day. "The court grants Harper Carter the right to reside with Lena Morgan and Ezra Whitaker under ongoing protective guardianship without a fixed end date." My hands went cold, not from fear, from disbelief, from the sensation of standing in a place I once thought I'd never reach. Harper ran toward me, throwing herself into my arms with a force like she was afraid I might disappear if she didn't hold on tight enough. Ezra placed a hand over both our shoulders. "Let's go home," he said. Home, a word that once held too many shadows for me, now it glowed like a warm window in the middle of winter. The day Harper moved in, Charleston greeted us with a light rain. The smell of wet earth mixed with ocean salt, like the sky was rinsing off the road we were about to walk together. Ella claimed the job of helping Harper set up her new room. Jonah dumped his Lego sets on the floor and said, "These are for you, so you can start building something new." May pulled Harper into the kitchen to show her the secret chocolate box they all hid from Ezra. Amid all the laughter, Harper stood in the doorway, hugging her old suitcase, eyes shining. "Can I really stay here?" she asked softly. I took her hand. "This is your home," I said. "You don't need permission to breathe." Harper broke down crying, not the shattered kind of crying, but the releasing kind. Ezra leaned against the doorframe, smiling. In this house, he said, if someone's crying, someone else has to hug them, so pick Lena or me. Harper laughed through her tears. Both, she said. So we did. We all wrapped our arms around each other, not like a brand new family trying to figure out how to fit, but like a family that had been waiting for the last missing piece to finally arrive. Later that night, when the house was quiet and everyone was asleep, I sat on the porch and listened to Charleston's nighttime sounds. Distant fishing boats, wind moving through Spanish moss, the soft stillness that draped itself over the city. I thought about Vivian, about Adrian, about the hearing, about the child sleeping peacefully in the room that used to be my office. A whole chapter of my life had ended today, but at the very same time, a door opened onto something I never truly believed I could have. A family. Not flawless, not traditional, but real, soft, stubbornly loving. Ezra joined me on the porch, and I rested my head on his shoulder. I think I finally did the right thing, I said. He squeezed my hand. Not finally, he replied. You've been doing the right thing for a long time. I looked out at the brick street, rainwater still catching the glow of the streetlights, and I understood. Sometimes the strongest light doesn't come from the sun. It comes from the way we choose to treat each other. From the hands that reach out at the exact moment someone's slipping. From kindness that doesn't keep score. From choosing love over bitterness. I smiled. Tomorrow, I said, is a new day. Yeah, Ezra replied, a new chapter. And for the first time in a very long time, I believed him completely. If you stayed with me all the way to the end of this story, thank you. If you've walked through your own dark seasons like I did, I'd love to know how this ending feels to you. And if you want to hear more stories about quiet, everyday strength, the kind that grows in kitchens, in courtrooms, on night porches, don't forget to leave a comment and subscribe. Sometimes, one story at the right moment can light up an entire stretch of road.